The U.S. leads the world in exporting used textiles for recycling or donation, but much of our old clothing is not actually being reused. 2 years ago, our Deborah Pata showed us how much of this waste ends up overseas in Ghana, West Africa.
Waste is being built into the model of fast fashion, like overproduce, and then in the end, like people wear clothes for just like 2 weeks and then just discard them. The waste does not end up in America. Ultimately, it ends up here in Cantamanto.
But it doesn't stay in Cantamanto. When the rains come, some of this textile waste washes up on the local beaches.
They're called tentacles and they're everywhere on this beach, discarded, rotting, tangled mess of clothing. They're buried so deep, it's almost impossible to pull them out.
Tasha Lewis joins us now with more on this story. She's an associate clinical professor at the Sustainability Institute at The Ohio State University. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you for having me.
So we'll start with a quick question about exactly what fast fashion really is and what it's doing to our environment.
Well, fast fashion is really a way of looking at the production of clothing. So it's clothing that's produced at a much faster rate than traditionally we've made clothing. But at the same time, as we saw in the video, it's also discarded at a much faster rate. So it has a much shorter life cycle as a garment. And so this is an environmental issue because the more we consume fast fashion, the faster our rate of disposal of these garments continues. And we're also seeing an increase in disposal of garments into landfills as a result of this type of fashion.
And this is very interesting because I think a lot of folks who are maybe buying fast fashion think, well, I'll just donate it and someone else will use it. But that's not really what's happening.
No, most of the clothing that is donated is not necessarily something that is resold for someone else to wear. A little over half of it is actually exported to other countries, developing countries primarily, where then it enters another cycle of being resold. So some of the garments can also be landfilled. They're not wearable, they're not usable. So a lot of our garments are not actually reworn or resold to be owned by other people.
So sustainable fashion, that's something that's growing now. There's a lot of interest in this. Even people like Angelina Jolie announced a new sustainable focused brand. What are some of the hallmarks of sustainable clothing? How do I know if that's what I'm buying?
That's a great question. And there are a lot of ways that we can look at sustainability. The industry doesn't yet have a very standardized way of looking at sustainability. So some of the things I like to tell people to think about are fiber content. Some fibers biodegrade because they're natural fibers. Some garments are made out of recycled fibers, which means that we didn't consume virgin resources like water or land or fuel to actually make them. So these are some of the big picture things we can look at when we think about sustainability.
A really fascinating conversation. Tasha Lewis, thank you.
Thank you.